Thanks everyone for being here to join us. This is Origin Community Call, and I wanted to take a couple minutes before we go through the agenda and just sort of reiterate to everyone that this is an open meeting. This is one example of our radically transparent public culture that we have at Origin. We invite everyone to get involved in the conversation here. So we're not here to just broadcast updates and information. This should be an open dialogue for anyone who's in our community, one of our open source contributors, just a user, an investor, or someone who's just curious about Origin and wants to learn more and maybe get involved. This is a great opportunity for you to have a conversation with the core team, and then we do the same thing in Discord all week long. On today's agenda, we have a pretty full docket, I think. We'll start out, as we usually do, talking about OUSD. There are a couple of topics that various people are going to cover, maybe one demo, I think, included there, along with some updates, but we will have some open dialogue, hopefully, about our plan to roll out a new yield earning strategy for OUSD, as well as some questions about monitoring proposals that will come through our decentralized governance system, hopefully soon. And then we'll turn it over to the Origin Story team to give any updates or pose any questions that they want. We'll look at any governance proposals that are currently open, and then near the end of the call, let me mute somebody for a second. If anyone hasn't already, we'd ask that you mute on your end. That way, whenever you might want to jump in or introduce yourself later, then you'll be able to unmute and you won't need us to do it. Otherwise, jump in at any time if you have any questions or anything to add. And as I was saying, around the end of the call, maybe in 45 minutes or so, we'll have an opportunity for everyone to introduce themselves if they have not done that before. If this is your first time on the call, or you just haven't said hello in the past, we want to know who you are, how you found us, and what you're excited about. So before we jump into all those topics, let's take a minute to talk about to cover any announcements or flag anything that everyone should be aware of. And then we can recognize any community contributions if there have been any in the past week. Anybody have an announcement to start with? Or I have a couple. The first one that came to mind for me was the story that broke this morning about the U.S. government kind of blacklisting Tornado Cash. So just a public service announcement. If anybody uses Tornado Cash regularly and you're based in the U.S. or a U.S. citizen or something, you might want to reconsider that. We're certainly not legal experts here, but it seems like that's becoming an area of concern that they're taking pretty seriously. Unless anybody has any comments to add, if you do, interrupt me. But the other announcement that I had on my notes was I think it was last week, we talked a little bit about what metrics are like, KPIs or the things that we care most about for OUSD in particular, and along with that, OGV, the governance token for OUSD. That reminds me that many months ago in this meeting, we talked about sending out weekly email updates that tracked some of those metrics, and we ended up implementing that. So there's a weekly update email that's been going out for 6 or 9 months or something like that. But there's no way for people to know that email list exists. No way for them to sign up for it in a self-serve way. I don't think we're going to prioritize, building a funnel for that right now. But this is just a reminder. If anybody is not on that email list and you want to be getting that update, I think it comes out like every Monday morning at midnight UTC or something like that. Then just ping me or ping Doman, or just let somebody know in one of the OUSD discussion channel or something. And you don't have to post your email address publicly, but we'd be happy to add anyone to that list. And then maybe at some point down the road, we'll build a little self-serve funnel for that. that might tie into website redesign that I'll plan to maybe talk about next week. Any other announcements or anything to flag that comes to mind for anyone else? Okay. I don't think there are any community contributions to recognize this week, but interrupt me if you think of something. There has been a little bit of discussion in, I think it's the OUSD discussion channel about the funds allocation voting that we're currently doing in Snapshot, and we have like a spreadsheet that's sort of it's like a calculator for you to for voters to help decide how they want to cast their vote in Snapshot. I just wanted to mention that we've had a designer throwing around some concepts, some wireframes for how we might integrate that into the governance DApp. So you can scroll back up in OUSD discussion, or maybe somebody could link to it here. If that sounds like something that you'd be interested in taking a look at, those wireframes and weighing in on that design process, then that would be a cool thing to check out. So thanks to Matt, who has been working on that. And maybe we can get him in this call next week to introduce himself. A little bit different than the engineering contributions that we normally talk about. I've been talking a lot. Are we sure that there's nothing else to add before we get into the regular agenda?
Yeah, maybe a relevant thing. I was having problems joining. It was sending me an error that like it's capped at 24 or 25 people. So I don't know if it could be a situation that a lot of other people want to join this call and are unable to. Maybe this is not the right time to discuss it, but just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, thanks. You're not wrong. There's a 25-person cap, and that's one of the reasons. Actually, before this call, we were talking a little bit about possibly moving to Twitter Spaces, and there we would potentially have a much larger audience. But as you'll see today, as everyone will see today, we like to do demos and have a visual component to the call. So we'll come back to that topic at some point. But thanks for the reminder, Doman. Cool. While we've got you unmuted, do you want to? I can kick off the conversation, but I've been talking a lot, so I'm wondering if you want to. Give a little bit of an update on where we stand with developing a new strategy.
Yeah, cool. Happy to talk about it. This is actually your brainchild, Mike.
No.
So, no. Okay.
It's a collective effort.
Yeah. You just don't want to take the credit for it, huh? And I think it's pretty great. It's convenient since let me share my screen. Just a second. The pretty good. So currently, one of the main goals we're trying to achieve is trying to get strategies that would yield us higher APY. And something that I think Micah thought of and doesn't want to take the credit for is if we check the 3CRV, different 3CRV pools in Convex. So these are like convex meta pools, which meta pool just means that instead of having a pair of tokens, as you would have, for example, USDC and USDT, and you can swap between those. You have a token, a custom token next to a 3CRV LP, which just it's a pretty clever way to implement the logic where you can swap between this custom coin or this configurable coin and any of the three stable coins that are in the three pools, so USDC, USDT, and DAI. This was like a pretty cool way of Curve trying to reach the goal of not diluting the stable coins too much, and they have like all the three major stable coins in one 3CRV pool, and then meta pools just kind of latch onto with an extra coin to that 3CRV pool. And if we check the like variable APYs of various 3CRV pools, we can see that there are some that are significantly higher and are pretty lucrative and would be interesting for us to try to liquidity mine those pools. But of course, the biggest issue is always we're trying to still be risk averse. So pick a pool that has a pretty stable or a pretty safe stable coin next to a 3CRV pool. And the thing that's like pretty cool about this approach is that any of these pools that you can see on my screen now, that they're actually all so here is our meta strategy pool. Any of these pools can be liquidity mined using practically the same code, just the same strategy, just configured in a different way. So we would implement it once and then have this agility to be able on probably weekly, or we're only bottleneck is then the governance. So how fast we can get a governance consensus to mine off of a strategy, and also do some security research that is like a safe meta pool. And then we can with pretty high agility check the variable APYs and mine those, and that should be like a pretty cool really approach to increase our APY and to be agile in case these variable APYs of the pools jump around, that we can keep up. That's basically it. Micah, did you want to add something?
No, that was a great summary. Thank you. I'll just reiterate that we're not going to propose to rush into any one of those meta pools with all of the vault funds or something like that. This is just by developing this framework, like Doman said, it allows us to dip our toes into various meta pools at any time if we decide that not just we as a team, but we as a decentralized community of governance, if we decide that that we want to earn some of the OUSD APY from some of those more exotic convex strategies. Daniel, did you have anything to add? I know you were part of the conversation a couple days ago.
Nothing to add.
Well then, who else has questions or concerns or anything?
I have a quick question for you actually, Doman. So would we launch the current meta strategy as is and then implement this more generic one? Or I guess, how are you thinking about meta strategy release?
So this generalized convex meta strategy, there's like a work in progress name, which actually shares like 80 or 90% of the code with our OUSD meta strategy, and it doesn't in any negative way impact the launch of the OUSD meta strategy. Currently, I think it's still it's waiting to be reviewed and to be really not just code reviewed, but I expect probably Daniel's gonna take a lot of time and try to stab it from all different directions and see that it's safe and that it behaves as expected. And then we can proceed with the OUSD meta strategy release. This one just really conveniently just shares like a lot of the logic, and it's so the strategy, so the the solidity logic, and also the testing logic, where we'll be testing how does the strategy perform when curve pools are in different states, when they're more tilted towards 3CRV, when they're more tilted towards the other main coin. So a lot of the code is actually already there, which is pretty convenient, because it really just significantly increases how fast we're going to be able to roll this one out. I hope that answers your question.
Got it. Yep. So you're still recommending we move forward with the OUSD meta strategy testing and launch, and then after that, or in parallel, we can look at this more generalized strategy.
Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think we would continue or test it out, finish out the code. Whether we actually launch it or put too much into it depends on market conditions and yield. But it is kind of a stepping stone for building this next thing. So yeah, it's kind of in parallel, but whatever we learn from this goes into the next one.
Got it. Yep.
For the
Thanks,
type
guys,
of
for
risk.
clarifying. Yep.
Cool. Any other questions for me or Doman?
Actually, I have a
I
quick
guess.
question about. Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Frank, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
I was just thinking in terms of product strategy. So right now, I guess we're just going to be trying to do it for just the OUSD meta full strategy. Is there any advantage if we wanted to kind of abstract convex and have kind of more like an index approach, like you see at APY Finance, for example? That way we could even productize just that.
Do you mean
Yeah,
by Go ahead, Micah.
Let me kind of restate the question as I understand it. Could we potentially have a strategy that itself deploys funds across a bunch of these meta pools? Is that right?
Yeah, I guess I don't know how much adoption we've seen at APY Finance, but that's basically what they have done. They just created a convex
Right.
index.
Yeah, so I think my initial comment is from the security perspective, which it isn't necessarily about product strategy, but security is always our number one concern. So that comes to mind first. Like whatever is in that index strategy, we would want to, fully understand the risks and have as much of a handle on it as we would if we implemented that specific strategy. So that's Frax, for example. Whether we're developing a Frax specific metapool strategy or a convex index fund strategy, then we would want to have the same depth of knowledge on what we're getting ourselves into. So it just makes it exponentially more complex, I think, if we try to do an index fund across all of them.
Yeah, no, I think it would add because there would probably need to be a gauge and allocation even for that index strategy, which is what API Finance does, for example. But in terms of the technical implementation, would it just be just one extra layer, one extra token that has to be created? Then that would be kind of held as a portion of the overall OUSD portfolio.
Daniel, were you going to say something? Do you have any comments on that, or Doman?
So just that I understand correctly. So you mean if we can implement within one strategy a logic where we would be able to dip into any of the array of meta pools and have a percentage of liquidity depending on some logic shared between those meta pools? Is that what your question was?
Separating it one extra layer, adding one extra tokenization in between OUSD and the underlying convex strategies. Also for composability.
Are you basically saying that people could invest into a specific other strategy without being in the whole total OUSD thing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And that's kind of been a thing we've actually discussed this week in the sense that historically that's been something we've tried to stay away from with OUSD, in that there's one coin and you don't have different risk profiles. It's still something maybe we should think about, because we have put a whole lot of effort into having a good way to convert yield tokens and invest in these strategies and turn them into essentially a single growing value. But that has been explicitly something we've decided not to do in the past. But I do get what you're saying. Basically, almost like Harvest Finance or Yearn, where you, if that's what you're saying, where you stick your coin into an individual strategy and it grows as that strategy. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, no, it's like OUSD is a portfolio, and then you could have even a portfolio can hold other indexes of strategies, and maybe you have a specific convex index, and you could have a specific index for any other, stable coin portfolios on other platforms. So I was just trying to understand if that adds a lot more technical complexity as well, if you wanted to even enable that feature.
It's certainly some. It's worth thinking about and deep diving into probably, but it is something that is not currently on our roadmap and is something in the past we've stayed away from.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up, Orion. I think I got two questions. We don't have to address them, but two questions came out of your question for me, which was one, could we make it possible for people to invest directly into the strategies that OUSD itself is using if they wanted to isolate those strategies? That's cool. The second thing, I actually glossed over this with Doman and when we were talking through this a minute ago. By implementing the generalized convex strategy that we were proposing, will we be constrained to just one metapool at a time, or will we be able to spread across, 5 different metapools through this new generalized strategy?
We'll be able to spread between 5 different, but each different metapool is going to be its own separate strategy that we need to deploy or that we need to pass a governance vote on.
Yeah. Cool. Makes sense. This is great. I love this discussion and brainstorming on this topic. Let's move on to the next one, and maybe we'll circle back on strategies next week. Tom, did you want to give a quick update on continued improvements to the staking interface?
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, cool. So you see my screen, right?
I do when I click watch stream, yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Yep. Cool. So just a quick one from me, really. So alongside working on the governance UI, which will be hopefully the next big release in the next week or two, we've been working on some other improvements to the staking UI that'll just help working on user feedback and just help users, understand the stakes that they have a little bit more. So one that was working on last week was Etherscan history of stakes. So basically beforehand, if you created a stake, you wouldn't really have much other information than that, especially no on-chain information. So what we've done last week is implement a feature where you can click this little icon here, and alongside each of your stakes, you'll now have a full transaction history, and you'll be able to click into the transactions themselves and see exactly what happened on Etherscan. And then obviously as well, you can see this applies to each stake that you have open. So, you do a stake at first, and then you can extend it, and then the second transaction will also be stacked on top of that. And yeah, any stake that you make, you will get that history from now on. So yeah, just a quick one to update people on the improvements that we're making to make our users' lives easier.
I love it.
Nicely done, Tom.
Great improvement.
Yeah, thanks. Before you go, Tom, you want to elaborate on why that was a little bit complicated?
Yeah, so before we just didn't have that history at all, and all that would change really is like the time remaining and the lockup end date. But it might not be clear, how you actually got to that end date. It might have just been an initial stake. It might have just been, you wouldn't know the difference between an initial stake and a stake and then an extend. So now you've got that clarity now on each event that you partake in. You get a transaction hash, and you can dig into that deeper and see exactly what's happening with your OGV.
And some of them don't map one to many. Some of them map many to one, right?
Do you mean in terms of the transactions?
Yeah, like if you claimed pre-locked OGV from holding OUSD, you have multiple stakes, but there's only one Etherscan transaction.
So yeah, exactly, Micah. So if you would have claimed, the pre-locked OGV, you get it in four lockups. But it would be done in one transaction. But even though you will see in this UI, the 4 different stakes with the different end dates appearing separately, you'll still get the history now for the initial stake event, and the hash will be the same for all 4. I mean, in this example, I can't demo this, but because this wasn't pre-locked. But yeah, the hash will be the same for all 4. But at least you'll see. You'll have that information, and then if you click into the hash, you'll see all 4 stakes being done in that one transaction. But then after the fact, if you want to, extend any one of those separately, each one of those transactions will be unique thereafter.
Great. Thanks for that. Anybody else have questions for Tom? Any comments on further improvements? Well, if anybody hasn't noticed, we have a little side chat going on here in under the Origin Weekly Voice channel. So there's a little bit of conversation going on there. I recommend checking that out. Next topic is the a little bit of dilemma that we have about wanting to monitor governance proposals as they arrive. Frank, I put your name on this. I didn't give you a heads up about talking through it, but would you have any interest in summarizing what the concern here is and maybe what options we've explored?
Yeah, sure. So I think what we want to make sure is that OUSD is a super secure protocol, and we wouldn't want a malicious user to be able to submit a governance proposal that would put the protocol at risk. We've seen that kind of exploit on other protocols where an attacker basically was able to deploy a malicious contract and have the protocol do the wrong thing with financial implications, funds at risk. So yeah, was just talking with the team about that. I think one of the things that is super helpful is to look at the governance parameters, right? And thanks, Daniel, for summarizing these. And my understanding in that issue that's linked off the meeting notes, that these are the current parameters for the contract that's deployed, right? But we could, the community and the team could decide to update these parameters before we hook up OUSD to the new governance contract. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. Thank you. Because if you guys look at it, I think some of these, like the quorum, for example, for passing a governance proposal might be set a little low, or the time lock. I think currently the quorum is at 4%. The time lock is at 2 days, I believe. So I think what we should do is look at these parameters and come up with something that we feel comfortable with. Knowing that, we could start with some, pretty tight values, pretty conservative values initially, and then update after some time. So that's the overall context. So in terms of flavors or things to think about, I'd say number one, these governance parameters. Number two would be monitoring. How do we make sure that the community and the Origin team is aware of new governance proposal and is able to inspect them and carefully vet them before they get voted on and potentially approved through the governance portal. And so there, in terms of monitoring, I'd love to get some feedback, but, we listed a few options. There's like Discord notifications in a public channel. Whereas, emailing, we could have, our team and the community sort of like have a watchdog or like a rotation, making sure that, we constantly have someone or few more than one people responsible on a weekly basis or whatever we decide for monitoring these parameters. Various options, and I'm going to open it up for discussion and feedback.
Thanks, Frank. One other thing I would add is that, if everything works as intended, if someone were to submit a proposal that would potentially be an attack, we would see that appear on the governance portal that Tom is working on building out. But, we obviously don't want to rely on our own remembering to go check it every day or something like that. That's why we need some sort of trigger.
Well, the Discord bots have been really good, and I think what we probably want to supplement that with is some kind of external service that emails you whenever a transaction goes through a contract, and have some of us get those emails as well as somebody else to give a second layer of notification when something happens that's from outside our infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Like Nansen, for example, in terms of service or equivalent.
I'm fairly unfamiliar with which one would be best.
Yeah. One thing we need to be aware of is notification fatigue. If we get too many notifications, and if the community does, same thing. We'll get fatigue and we'll start not paying attention anymore. So having the right thresholds for triggering these emails and notifications, I think, is important.
Yeah, given there's a bit of a financial commitment to be able to make a proposal currently. Well, it's not as bad as with OGN, but there's still we haven't really been seeing too much spam, I guess, yet, even on the snapshot voting with very, very little cost.
Any other suggestions or concerns, thoughts about that issue?
I had a potential suggestion. Something we did at Alchemy, I guess they're still kind of using this process, is implementing a soft vote before doing a hard vote on Snapshot. So the proposal had to start on, I think, discourse and pass just a soft governance before getting posted on Snapshot. And that kind of like weeded out a lot of people who were just making bogus proposals because they didn't want to go through the entire process. The only problem is just it adds another step to monitor.
Got it, yeah. Just to be clear, this is for the on-chain governance. This is a discussion about the on-chain governance. We do have a snapshot that we use for signaling ahead of on-chain governance, and we are less worried about that one. What we were focusing on here was the on-chain, the possibility that a malicious on-chain proposal would go through our governance contract.
Oh, got it. Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Sure. Thanks for the suggestion, Peter.
Maybe just one way to approach this would be to put like a low effort, Discord bot or just like a very basic email list, since it's distributed governance that anyone can subscribe to. And then, we fix problems down the road if we need to, if they're like, for some example, would be like too many proposals or whatever. But I think it'd be like pretty cool to try to get something out of the door with as low effort as possible.
Well, we have the analytics bot that is already working and already following things. It does throw in OUSD bot channel, and I think we can either make a separate channel for it to put just govern our own governance, higher priority things in. But that code's pretty much already there and already working, and we can easily add new events to it that we want it to monitor and alert on.
Yeah, good point. That'd be a good place to put it in.
Yeah, I agree, Daniel. That has worked well with the compound contract monitoring. This begs a question for me. If someone were to attack the governance contract, they could submit like 100 proposals all at once, and we would have to take the time to comb through them, wouldn't we? I mean, that would get our attention. So they may not want to do that. They might just want to slip one through, but it could become like a big effort to vote them all down.
Yeah, they would have to pay gas for it, though.
Yep.
Sure.
Is gas the most expensive part? I mean, it's only 4% of the VE OGV that they need to reach quorum. And then I guess that's not a very expensive economical attack right now, is it?
Yeah, I think 4% is too low right now. So we should figure out what quorum we should start with. I think we should.
Another thing that I would wonder about is the given the low OGV price right now, is we don't have a review time currently configured. If that means that basically once somebody submits a proposal, the votes are locked at that point. Whereas I think with a review time, that allows people to buy more OGV or people to extend their stake longer in order to vote against something. And so we should investigate that part as well.
Interesting.
That's a very good point, yeah.
And in terms of setting the quorum, I would look at liquidity and exchanges and try to make it very cost prohibitive in terms of, almost impossible if you can in some ways, if it makes sense.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we should probably move on from that topic, but thanks everybody for the suggestions, and feel free to jump into that GitHub issue where we're discussing the the governance parameters. I just linked that in the side chat a few minutes ago. That'd be a great place to follow up on some of these details what numbers we want to set there. Let's take just a minute or two to highlight any wallet or token list integrations or any other integrations for that matter that we've had success with. And then if there are any blockers that are causing any issues there, we should identify those too. Jeremy, you want to go first?
No blockers, but we did have a lot of great implementations this past weekend. So we now have support over on SushiSwap on their default token list, as well as on Brave Wallet. That's OGN, OUSD, and OGV are all supported. On IM token side, Roland submitted a PR for OGV, VOGV, and wrapped OUSD. I believe we sent out the follow-up tweet today, if I recall correctly. So we should be good to go on that standpoint. Now for Balancer, I believe Roland will also submit a PR so we can get on OGV, OUSD, and Wrap OUSD on their default token list as well. Likewise with Pi Ether Balance and 1inch. And we're now supported fully on blockchain.com, OGN, OGV, basically all of Origin's product line is supported on blockchain.com. And today we were announced on BitKeep that all of Origin's product line is also supported on that wallet as well. Last but not least, two more announcements here. VMarketCap is now supporting Origin Dollar as well as VOGV tracking on their webpage. And Coin98 announced today support for OUSD and OGV. So that's it for me.
Peter, do you have any to add?
Just some small updates. I pinged my friends at Sablier, and they were able to get OGN supported, which was cool. I'll try pinging them again for wrapped OUSD, for regular OUSD, but I believe they said that they don't support wrapped tokens right now. But maybe we'll be able to do it just without the rebasing function. So I'll check with them on that. And then we had a whole bunch of conversations with different organizations last week regarding OUSD. And a couple more this week for different protocols, hopefully convincing them to take a portion of their treasury and convert it into OUSD.
Cool. Maybe just a reminder, Aaron, I know you're on top of things here, but we've talked in another meeting about how we should make sure that we're getting as much marketing exposure as we can for all these little launches and integrations. So let's make sure we don't forget to do that. Or make sure that none of them slip through the cracks, basically. All right, we should probably move on to Origin Story in a minute, but there's a couple miscellaneous things. Daniel, I saw that this Dripper cleanup PR was merged after sitting there for a long time. Is there anything that needs to be done there, or
no? That's basically just a slightly cleaner way of writing the same code, and we will not redeploy. It's unbelievably minor.
Okay, so it won't actually take effect. Is that the case?
There's zero change in functionality. It just removes writes the same thing cleaner in 2 lines.
Gotcha.
It's just a cleanup, and next time we deploy, we'll pick it up.
Gotcha.
But no need to deploy for just these minor changes.
That makes sense. And we're in the middle of a 2-week sprint right now. We won't go deep on that topic, but I think there were a few things that were still in scope for these 2 weeks that don't have owners. So I just wanted to flag that. Frank, I know you're on top of it, but just wanted to mention that. And I will link the project view here in the side chat in about 20 seconds. Linus, you want to tell us what's going on with Origin Story?
Sure. Hey, everybody. So on Origin Story, a couple of quick updates. Thematically, very consistent with what we've been talking about, which is good news. We're continuing to chug along and grow adoption of collections and sign up more partners. The major new improvement that we're working on actively is native listings. So last week we did a couple of rounds of internal testing, which is going really well. Gives us a lot of confidence that we'll be in great shape to launch this this month. The target would be to launch this next week, actually, with our first partner, Pudgy Penguins. After that, you'll expect to see this roll out to all live marketplaces as well as be the defaults. Anytime we launch a new marketplace partner, it will come automatically with the ability to natively buy and sell on the Origin marketplace. So really excited for that, and that will unlock revenue generation for Story on branded marketplaces. In fact, we did a number of internal test transactions on this, and we saw that the payments routed appropriately, with some small micropayments going into the staking contract as well. So as you'll sort of expect to see as real transactions go through this, once we launch and once we scale to more marketplaces, you'll start to see the Ethereum amount in the staking pool increase. So that's the major update on collections, our branded marketplaces. In terms of engineering priorities, native listings is the number one priority here on our list. That we want to go live before the end of the 2-week sprint by next week. Infrastructure and data improvements. This has been an ongoing theme to ensure that we have the best data quality across all of the marketplaces. Our strategy here is to aggregate across a number of different marketplaces and available APIs to have the freshest data for any collection, regardless of where it's listed. We're internally calling this platform the NFT Intel platform, NIP, which is coming together really nicely as a nice work stream that will allow us to scale to 50 to 100, et cetera, marketplaces. That'll be an ongoing theme. Next, one of the other areas that we are seeing that is a hot button issue for the industry is the treatment of stolen or flagged NFTs. And we're internally working on a solution here from the engineering side, just investigating what's the best way to get that flag for when an NFT is flagged as suspicious, specifically on OpenSea. We believe this is the only major marketplace that is taking this approach. We do think this is important information to show to a user and to a creator marketplace. And then implementing a solution whereby the creator would be able to decide as a rule for their marketplace, do they want to restrict trading, or do they basically want to just let the user know about it? Now, what we're seeing here is creators take different stances on this. Like I said, it's a hot button issue. It's very controversial. And so we think we have an approach here that would allow us to give the creator a choice of how they would like to treat it. So ongoing investigation there to ensure that we're clear on scope and it's engineering feasible in this sprint, and then we'll get to execution in the following sprint. The next theme is OGN staking UI improvements. So today we have about 11.6 million OGN staked in the pool, which is really nice. What we're seeing here is, people are understanding the value proposition of holding and staking their OGN for their share of the fees generated by Story. But we're also getting great feedback from customers about what's not clear about the UI and what's not clear about staking. So we've internally taken those improvements, done a round of mock-ups, and we're executing on those now. So you should see that live in the staking UI, hopefully within a couple of weeks. Hopefully shorter than that, as we're sort of executing on those improvements. Really, nothing will be changing about the rules of the staking itself, but our goal here is to present more information in a clearer way so that people really understand what they're signing up for when they're staking. The last theme that I will mention that the team is looking into is what's next for a branded marketplace. Our strategy here is to make sure that this is a highly engaging place for communities and holders of a particular NFT project to come back to every day, or not necessarily every day, but pretty regularly. And that could go beyond trading, right? And so one thing that we're seeing as a theme here is that NFT fans are looking for advanced analytics beyond what's available on typical marketplaces, which is pretty basic, like floor prices, the volume in the last 24 hours, et cetera. And so we're doing more exploration about what's possible, what's the most desired sort of cuts of data that could be presented on our marketplace, and doing some customer discovery, talking to NFT creators and collectors about their feedback for this. So that's sort of more of a short to medium term theme, as in we're not executing on this from an engineering perspective this sprint, but it's something that we're pretty darn excited about and want to get clear on the scope, and then we can probably get to execution in a couple of sprints in the future. That's really it on Origin Story. I'll leave it there and happy to take any questions.
Somebody's got to have a question. Don't be shy. Well, please bring your questions next week. We'll be here talking about both OUSD and Origin Story again. Quick check on governance proposals. We had the strategy allocation vote last week that we have every week, and I will link the new one for this week. Would encourage everyone to participate in that vote here in a few hours when it opens up. There was also a second one, though, last week. Someone had proposed that we resume the buyback, now buying back OGV, whereas previously we were buying back OGN. All the plumbing is, most of the plumbing was still in place there because we're taking 10% of the yield that's generated by OUSD and sending it to a contract that's governed by VE OGV token holders. But this is specifically to go ahead and start buying OGV off of the open market using those funds instead of them just remaining as OUSD in that contract. So that proposal passed, and that's, as we were talking in the chat here, that's one of the sprint priorities that still needs an owner, I think. But it's definitely something we were already working on and are glad to see that it passed. Maybe with unanimous approval. I can't remember. It was a lot. Okay. So before we go, we have a couple of minutes if anyone wants to say hello. So if this is your first time here or you've never introduced yourself before, you're welcome to unmute, do that, and let us know what you're up to.
Hi, I'm Brooke. I just started last week and I'm a new executive assistant and I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Thanks, Brooke. Anybody else want to say hi? Okay, then. I don't think I caught any action items for any specific individuals during this meeting. I think we just all collectively should focus on making decisions for the governance parameters, and I'm the owner for making sure we do that. So take a look at that GitHub issue if you haven't already, and let us know if you have any suggestions there. That's all that I've got. We're done a little bit early, but we'll try to be even more efficient next time. Until then.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Micah, for driving the meeting. Great meeting. Cheers.
Thank you.